Hello viewers, welcome to this tutorial. So if you went through this code, okay, which was the previous session, then I think you are good on the basic level. If you have not, just go through this level. Okay, now what I want to do in this tutorial is just to give you some quick strategies on what to do. Okay, so I made mention earlier that whenever you want to read from a file, this is just some kind of advice. Okay, if you want to read from a file, just use CSV. Okay, use CSV. If you want to write to a file, okay, just use the normal Python syntax. Okay, and if you want to append, just use Python's normal syntax, except you want to read everything as a bunch. Okay, if you want to read everything as everything as a big string, just like we have this one here. Okay, we want to read everything as one. We just don't want to separate them. We don't want to be given CSV. We don't want to access them as a list. I want to access the whole thing and maybe put them in the line edit. So anything, you understand line edit when we start dealing with graphical user interfaces. Okay, so we want to receive everything as a big. All we do is just go straight to the point. Is equal to my file.read. All right, so don't use read line. If you want to use read, then I advise you to use CSV, to use the Python's default function. So you can just go like print my file. Okay, and when we print, it shows us what did it say? Does read my file, blah blah blah. Not, oh, sorry. I made mention of being careful of which access mode to use, and I'm finding myself in the same error. Okay, so be careful of the access mode you're using. When I began the tutorial, so I'm using index 1, which is write, and I'm reading, so it will not work. So you have to be able to read errors as well. Okay, so if I run this code, I have nothing because of using the write. So the write actually wrote everything out. So there is nothing to print now. So I've modified it to read. So let me kind of put some things in the good, better, best, continue. All right, so you should be able to have the passion to make more mistakes. Is to help you to know how to read errors and know the possible things that will occur in your code. Okay, so I have good, better, best. All right, so this is what I have here. So if you want to read everything as a big string, you don't want to modify, you don't want to do anything, use Python's default built-in read. You are done. But if you want to read the individual CSV lines, just use CSV. But apart from that, writing, if you don't understand things I'm talking about in this tutorial, then start from my file session. Okay, because I'm just saying what I've already taught. Okay, just giving some piece of advice with that. So if you want to really go through writing and appending, use Python's default way. If you want to use access them by list, use CSV. If you want to read everything as a big string, just go directly to this and just jump start and do what you have to do. So I'm going to teach you one difference between having an extension as countries and having an extension as CSV. So this is one of the things as well you will know in this tutorial, that the .txt is different from .csv. So if I have a file here and I name it .csv, it works differently. Okay, but before I go to the CSV, something just came up. Check something out. All right. Okay, so I have countries and countries updated. So if you want to read with Python's basic, before I tell you, I think let me go back to the CSV I was talking about, because I'll need this. I've realized I'll need it to explain some things to you. So I have countries.csv. Okay, at first it was .txt. What is .csv? I made mention of CSV using Excel. So CSV uses Excel to do everything it has to do. So if I say .csv, it works the same way. You don't change anything within the code, but just that anytime I implement .csv, I have to be using the normal CSV stuff. You see, like kind of giving me some error up here. It can't file the file because I'm not using CSV. Okay, I'm not using CSV. So if you kind of have a file name country.csv, meaning you want to deal basically with CSV and import it into an Excel file by default. Okay, so that is when I come here and say CSV. Oh, I've not imported CSV. Okay, so import CSV, and that is it. So let me check this out. Okay, still the same problem. So what I have to do is to use CSV reader, then I have my file. Okay, if I run this code, or no such countries or CSV, don't I have anything there like CSV? Okay, I don't have any file here like CSV. Alright, so if I don't have any file there like CSV, then I have to create a file as CSV. Okay, so I think it brings a point which I want to pull out myself. Okay, that is, if you are reading from a file, the file actually has to exist. Okay, but if you are writing to a file, or appending to a file, Python creates the file by itself. Okay, so that's the point I wanted to make all this while. If you want to read to a file, you have to make sure the file exists. But if I change this one to write, just look at it. I have no file here as CSV. I have no Python file like countries.csv, which is an Excel worksheet, and you can do this for all of them, whether Notepad or anything. So I have write, okay, write, that is index 1. So I have index 1 and I want to write to a file. Okay, so if I run this code, now this is what it tells me, and if I go back, I have here, you know, an Excel sheet, and if I open it, it works just like a CSV. So just use a CSV within this, you realize the same. I just want to give you the concept of how it works. Okay, so if you want to write doing CSV using CSV, not doing CSV, so anytime you have those CSV, all your inputs and everything you do is stored in an Excel worksheet. Simple. It makes your job so simple. So you use the write tool, everything you have learned, nothing changes. The only thing I'm implementing is the .csv instead of .txt. So if I use the CSV, it stores in an Excel worksheet. That is done. And make sure you use the Excel CSV stubs down here. Okay, so that's what you just need to know. And if I do the write, it works basically the same thing. So if I want to write to a file and the file does not exist, it creates another file. If I want to append to a file and the file actually does not exist, it creates another file. So if I have this maybe countries 1, okay, and I print this one, now countries 1 was not in existence, but I have countries 1 right here, okay, and I've not inputted anything, so don't worry about that. Just go through the normal things we did with CSV using list and everything, you get to understand it. So I'm going to show you just one of them. So reading, actually, if there's no file, it gives an error. Writing and appending creates the file. So let's jump into one. I have countries 1.csv and I have writer. Okay, so what I have to do right here is my file.write row, and I say John, okay, good, and whatever thing I want to display. So if I come back to my CSV and I open countries.1, it separates them. You know, each one picks one cell because of the comma. That is why it's called CSV. The comma separates them into each and every cell. So this is just the basic thing you want to know, and which one to use and how to implement your code. So just open your mind so broad, think before you code, and anytime you code and see an error, don't be discouraged. Okay, just use it more, implement new things, and bring new strategies on board. In the next tutorial, which might be the final one, I made mention of teaching you how to access from different source of location, and also using a different method to access files. So that is what I'll teach you. So watch out for the next tutorial. Subscribe, like the videos, and also make sure you leave a comment and hit the bell for more updates. Thank you for